Come be a part of Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics with your host, Dr. Ed Holliday. Hear the voices of liberty speaking all across America. Doc Holliday provides thought-provoking interviews and commentary about the issues and actions that are afflicting this country and what we need to do to get America back on track. Get fired up, get inspired, get on board with Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics right now.
And here we go.
Once again, that's the sound of rock cracking. You got Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics right here on webtalkradio.net. I'm your host, Dr. Ed Holliday. Glad to have each and every one of you listening to us. This is, man, do the politics just keep on splitting, breaking, cracking, and you look across our country and you think our country is cracking up. My goodness, we got the President of the United States talking about transgendered children. We'll have to do a show on it someday of what's going on in Florida, what they call the anti-gay bill, had nothing about gay in there, just saying that we're going to let 4 and 5 year olds, 6, even 7-year-olds be told that you may be a little boy, but you may be a girl. They're not going to explain to them that you can have be a boy and have a vagina, or be a girl and have a penis. You know, when children are so impressionable, and to try to explain this at that age, and I mean, it's what I've heard some people call it's just grooming to try to force people into being something or thinking there's something that they're not. You know, 5 year, anybody's had children know that you go around a 5, 6 year old. I mean, every child tells the most humongous lies. I mean, it's just part of growing up. You go through a stage where they have to lie to see what they can get away with, and just there's a part of them wants to lie. It's a part of learning what you can do. And then you hear, well, you're a boy, and then you hear a teacher say, well, you really may be a girl. This is asinine. It's crazy. And our country is suffering and will suffer so much more in the future if we don't have CEOs like the CEO of Disney to change their mind and really love the children who they make such amounts of money bringing families to Disney World. And now they're upset because the governor of Florida and the legislators of Florida, including Democrats, put a law together saying we are not going to force this into our children's minds before they're able to carry it. It's like giving a 6-year-old a 100-pound suitcase and saying, go, take that suitcase. They're not ready for it. They are not ready for it. Where will common sense come into play? I'm talking about right here on Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics, the Tea Party movement. You know, so many times I heard people, where's common sense? And even today, you're crying out, where is common sense? Well, I hope you'll get some here right here at Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. Today, we got Congressman Jim Jordan, a clip. We don't have an exclusive interview with him today, but we do have a clip. He spoke one of the most outstanding speeches I've heard lately on the floor of the House. It's about 5 minutes. We'll play that, and I'll cut into it and give some comment. But it's so important for America to hear Congressman Jim Jordan from Ohio. I wished there was some way that he could be the Speaker of the House someday. It's not impossible, but I would love to see him Speaker of the House. Now, before we get to Congressman Jim Jordan's clip, people look around and go, man, it's inflation. Of course there's inflation everywhere. What did we say when they kept wanting to spend money? It's going to cause inflation. Oh, it's just transitory. About a year ago, it's just transitory. They were lying through their teeth. Our Treasury Secretary, Miss Yellen, used to be head of the Federal Reserve, she knew it's going to cause inflation, and she lied to us saying it's transitory because they wanted the Democrats to spend even more money for their Build Back Better program. It was a Build Back Broke. We've had Senator Marsha Blackburn on our show, and she was talking about how crazy some of these things are. Where is common sense? She's the one that said Build Back Broke. And that's what the entire Democratic Biden's proposal, Build Back Better, was already spent over $5 trillion, and they wanted to add another $5 trillion. Thank goodness that Senator Joe Manchin and others said, no, we can't do this now. Inflation would be, they didn't even care about inflation. When you look at gas prices, when you look at what's cost, everything's going up. Healthcare, food on the shelves. And because energy's going up, everything's going to go up. And it's not because of Putin. That added some on it with the war of the Ukraine. But it's because of the disregard for fundamental economics that the Democratic Party and Joe Biden tried to just wipe away, saying, oh, this is not going to affect inflation. We already had inflation creeping up in his first year. There's nothing, there was an entire year of COVID with Donald Trump in 2020. And did we have trouble with inflation? No, we didn't. We would not have trouble with inflation now if Joe Biden and the Democrats would look at drill, baby, drill in a clean environment and get this nation back to energy independence. I think we could not only knock inflation out, we would knock out Russia's ability to wage war on the Ukraine. It would be a win-win situation. But when you have people who are so blind to common sense sitting in the White House and appointing people that mimic them and their goals, then that's what we end up with. Talking about that, let me just, again, we're going to get that clip from Congressman Jordan on in 3 or 4 minutes. But this is why we're having inflation, a big part of it. You can go to the macroeconomics and look at all this and that, but I'll tell you why. It's because of people who Joe Biden puts in place. Just last week, they talked about new vehicles, the mandate from the government. Mandate from the United States government. New vehicles must average 40 miles per gallon by 2026, up from 28 miles per gallon. Man, from 28 to 40 in 4 years. Now, Donald Trump said they could do it at 28 miles per gallon. But now all new vehicles must be 40 miles per gallon in 4 years. Now, what's that going to do to the price of your automobiles? Well, it's not going to bring them down, and it's going to put extra pressure on companies to hit a government mandate. And again, who's heard about this? Very few people talk about it, but it's just one of thousands. I mean, not hundreds, but thousands of what bureaucrats that were put in place by Joe Biden. Joe Biden can't do all this himself. We know that. He's probably not doing anything but just keeping a seat warm. But I got more about that in just a second. But the entire reason we have inflation is because of policy changes, just like that 40 miles per gallon being pushed up 12 more miles per gallon within 4 years. We're already 2022. They're planning 2023. Really, they got 2 years, 24 and 25, to get it done. This is insanity. And that's why it's not just that. It's all over our government. They're talking about putting climate change directors, climate warming people in every agency. They already have them in many, but think about the cost of that. Think about the cost of throughout our military, throughout our farming industry, throughout everything the government does. They want more and more jobs. That means taxpayer-funded jobs. And between the diversity czars, I mean, they have them through every agency throughout Washington, D.C. How much waste are we spending on salaries for things that are not helping the American people get things done? Yes, we need help from the government when it comes to farmers, when it comes to the Department of Agriculture, when it comes to energy department, but to put hundreds and even thousands of people in places of diversity czars by now putting climate change directors in every agency and funding that. And it's taxpayer money. We are not getting what we're paying for. And most of these people are working from remote. They're still working remotely. They're not going into offices in Washington, D.C. They're working remotely. I was in D.C. last week. The metro is not full. People aren't going to work. They're sitting at home on their remote, calling in. And, I mean, yes, they're doing work, but how efficient is that work? And I'm just telling you, there's so much waste, and the Democrats have brought in more and more waste, but it's worse than that because they're bringing in people making decisions. They're putting people in positions of bureaucrats that make decisions that are hurting, and that's why we got inflation. That's a big reason. When will the camel back be broken? All these little decisions are adding up, and inflation has not been attacked by the Federal Reserve. Yes, they raised rates recently, but just 0.25%. we got inflation. They're declaring it 7%, and they're lying about that. If you kept up inflation the way I read one article, if inflation was looked at as the way it was in the 1970s, we'd have inflation at 15 or 16%. We've just revised our standards so it won't look as bad. My goodness. I told you there's something else. Last week, if you watched any news, it showed you Barack Obama came back to the White House, and he was celebrating, the 10th anniversary of the Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, which made everybody's rates go up. Not affordable. It was subsidized, and that's why it's working, because it's being subsidized. It does not pay for itself. That's why for years I've opposed it, because it does not pay for itself without heavy government intervention, pouring in money. It does not work. But Barack Obama was there, former President Obama, and it was such a sad scene for President Biden. I hope you've seen the video. This is a radio show, so let me visualize, but in the White House, in a setting where you see a crowd of people, and it's not like he's giving a speech. It's just people coming in, that different people at the White House, and of course Secret Service agents, but everybody was crowding around Barack Obama. And there was Kamala Harris, just under the arms of Barack Obama. She was smiling the biggest smile because she was just in his shadows. And Obama was laughing, high-fiving, shaking hands. And behind him, and it was unknown to Obama for a while, but behind him was the President of the United States, Joe Biden, and he looked as lost as a goose. He looked so sad. He looked lonely. If you've seen people with dementia, my father-in-law had dementia before he passed away. My father had some dementia before he passed away. But to see those eyes and that lost look in the eyes, and then Joe Biden was wandering around behind Barack Obama. The camera was taking all this in. And it was so sad looking. I don't care how much Botox they pump into Joe Biden's face. You can't hide those lost eyes. And he was so lost. And he was hurt because everybody was crowding around Barack Obama. And he was the President of the United States. But Kamala Harris and all the others, nobody. They wanted to be in the shadow of Barack. And so they were. And Joe Biden was reaching out to put his hand on the shoulder of the former president. And as Joe Biden put his arm on the shoulder of the former president to get the former president's attention, Barack Obama never turned around and acknowledged the president of the United States. How sad was that? Oh, man. We got to get to this clip with Jim Jordan speaking on the floor of the House of Representatives. We're going to do that, but first let me remind you, you're listening to Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. You're listening to us right here on webtalkradio.net. Glad to have each and every one of you. It is a midterm election year. We have primaries that are going on and getting engaged. And as we get more into seeing who wins the primaries, we will be having more and more shows, and hopefully some of the candidates here on Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. So you need to stay tuned to that. We are preparing the ground, and that's what we talked about, some about inflation, and this president of the United States, Joe Biden, that is being, somebody's making decisions. Somebody is making decisions, and that's probably why we are in a weak position as a country. Internationally, it's a shame. Even with the war going on in the Ukraine, we do have some competent generals, hopefully, that are helping out and getting some equipment into the Ukraine. And thank goodness, the way that President Zelensky in the Ukraine he's given, again, people's compared him to Churchill, but he's given hope. And that hope has led to victories in many cases for the Ukraine. We don't know what's going to happen. We know Russia has a much bigger military. And I hope nobody thinks that Russia's not going to make things a lot worse. But we need a president who understands the situation. And I'm afraid that America is looking very, very weak on the world stage, especially after we sent Kamala Harris over there, and she just cackled in a time of very serious matter, and she cackled. So a lot that we just don't know what's going to be going on. But as I said, we will get into this election year deeper and deeper as the year moves on. And I want to tell you, friends and neighbors, about Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. And as we grow, we'll help spread the message of what we need for this nation, for this country, for the people, and for our children, and for our grandchildren, in the future of this country. Very important year, very important election coming up. And you've got to get engaged now. Find those primaries, get engaged with the most competent conservative candidate you can find, and let's work together. And I've said on this show, the most conservative candidate in Vermont is more liberal than I would like to see her be, running in the Republican primary, and hopefully be running as the Republican nominee in Vermont. But I will take her any day over another Bernie Sanders from the state of Vermont. And we got to broaden our vision because our country is at stake. Let's get every Republican we can in, because our nation is suffering greatly. Everything from Afghanistan to high inflation. It's just been a miserable last year. And we should be coming out of COVID in a very vibrant way. But it's scary out there because of who's leading this country. And we talked about Joe Biden, and then you see Kamala Harris, and you think, well, as sad as Joe Biden is, we don't need Kamala Harris. She's even worse. Okay, let me play this clip for you by Congressman Jim Jordan from Ohio.
Presented to the American people as if it were true, and they accuse us of being a danger to our democracy? This was right. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank the gentleman for yielding. The majority leader just a few minutes ago used the term danger to our democracy. Danger to our democracy. Think about this. Democrats have closed the Capitol, allowed proxy voting, kicked Republicans off committee, won't let Republicans serve on this select committee. First time in the history of the Congress, the minority leader was not allowed to put on a select committee the individuals he or she selected. First time in the history of our nation. Democrats are trying to end the Electoral College, trying to end the filibuster, trying to pack the court. This committee, the January 6th committee, altered evidence and presented to the American people as if it were true. And they accuse us of being a danger to our democracy? Mr. Gates was right. We got a border that is complete chaos.
Let me jump in here with Congressman Jordan just saying, yes, we have a border that is complete chaos that's about to get a lot worse because of, you heard the term 42. That's the one thing that's keeping a few of the illegal immigrants out of our country. Well, the Florida governor says he's going to send illegal immigrants to drop off to Delaware. Well, I hope he starts doing that. The Texas governor said he's getting 900 buses to bus illegal immigrants to Washington, D.C. I hope he does that. Puts them off right at the Capitol steps. And let's let the Democrats deal with what they're creating. Chaos on the border is chaos in our country. And chaos in our country is not good for our children. It's not good for anyone. When you're overflowing schools, overflowing healthcare centers, overflowing the mouths that got to be fed by the federal government throwing out more money and paychecks. And who's paying for that? Well, the government has no money. The money they have is in your pockets. And in the fake air, they got money from the clouds, really now. Because the Fed can just write out numbers on a computer, and the iCloud, here comes the helicopter money. Just keep on pouring it on. Oh, it won't hurt inflation. It's transitory. Have you heard that before? But let's get back to Congressman Jordan. Let's let him keep and continue his speech here.
We have $6 gas in California, $4 gas everywhere else in the country. We have crime at record levels in every major urban area in this nation, and we have an inflation problem that's at a 40-year high. And this committee has more contempt resolutions for a purely political reason. I think the whole committee is purely political, designed to do one thing: keep President Trump off the ballot in 2024.
Well, Congressman Jordan just put the tail on the donkey right there. Exactly what scares the Democrats to death is that Donald Trump could run and win again, maybe for the third time. They think some people know everybody knows he won once. And there's a lot of people who know he really won twice, but they're the ones that know the whole truth, and they're not about to spill the beans because they're the ones who know how the voters were suppressed and the illegal ballots got into the counting halls. Is that true or not? Well, maybe we have to watch Denise's movie coming out about that. But let's move on, and let me just say that Congressman Jordan pinpointed it right there. They are scared to death of Donald Trump being president of the United States because he does not play the game. He does not play the game that the rhinos, the Republicans and Democrats play to get along, as long as the power-hungry people have the power and the money, people keep their money and make more. And of course, you see the congressmen and senators, so many of them come away from Washington a lot richer than they came to Washington with. And I wonder how that happens. But just check it out. Now, let's get back to Congressman Jordan.
The gentlelady from Wyoming, in her opening comments, used the term false message. False, she used to say big lie. Now I guess it's false message. And I just jotted down, I thought when she said, I started jotting things down. False. Think about all the false messages we have got from them in the last few years. They told us the protests in the summer of 2020 were peaceful. Got $1 billion worth of damage around our cities that says it wasn't. They told us the dossier was real. They told us it was Republicans who wanted to defund the police. That's almost laughable if it wasn't so serious for our law enforcement and for the families who live in those areas where mayors and city councils did defund the police. They told us the FBI didn't spy on the Trump campaign. We know that wasn't true. We got Inspector General reports that tell us all kinds of things about what they did in front of the FISA court. They said Trump colluded with Russia. We got a Mueller report, 19 lawyers, 40 FBI agents, 30 million hard-earned American tax dollars in that report that said that false message was just that, false. They told us COVID didn't start in the lab. Sure looks like it did. They told us the lab wasn't doing gain-of-function research. Sure looks like it was. They told us the vaccinated can't get it. We know that's wrong. Every day there's a new announcement. A member of Congress is getting it. Fully vaccinated, boosted, everything else. They told us the vaccinated can't transmit it. They told us that was wrong. And you talk about the biggest false message that's just been confirmed in the last week, how false it was. The Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. The Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. October 22nd, 2020, 2 weeks before the election, candidate Biden, in a debate, is asked about his son's business dealings with foreign companies. He says, quote, nothing was unethical. He said, my son has not made money with business interests with companies with an interest in China. And we all know there are 4.8 million reasons why that statement was not accurate. And how do we know? Washington Post told us. Not me, not President Trump, not Republicans. The Washington Post told us last week, 2 stories last week, a week ago today, one at 11 a.m., one at 11:04 a.m., 2 8-page articles 4 minutes apart confirming what we knew, but what big media, big tech, Democrats colluded to keep from the American people just days before the most important election we have, the presidential election. Who's going to be our next commander-in-chief? The laptop was real, the eyewitness was real, the emails were real. The only thing fake was that collusion from those individuals, those entities, to keep important information from we the people in the run-up to the most important election we have. And oh, by the way, they were joined by 51 former intel officials, joined in the collusion. You know, it's also interesting. It's funny how that story has changed. 18 months ago, started off, wasn't his laptop. Quickly switched to, well, it was his laptop, but it was Russian disinformation. And now it is, well, it wasn't Russian disinformation, but Joe Biden had nothing to do with it. Now it was, well, Joe knew what was going on, but he wasn't really involved in anything wrong. Ron Klain told us that. Chief of Staff told us that Sunday. We need to be focused on the issues that the American people want us to focus on. If you want to talk about danger to our democracy and the biggest false message, I would say what happened, one of the biggest dangers to our democracy and one of the biggest false messages is what happened 18 months ago, where that story was kept from the American people. We could dig into that, find out what went on there, why that happened, and we could also focus on the record crime, record inflation, record price of gas, and the chaos on our southern border that's about to get worse as the Democrats look to, as the Biden...
Gentleman's recognized for 30 more seconds.
Title 42.
Well, you heard Congressman Jordan. He talked about Title 42 right there at the end. It's about to unleash so many more, hundreds of thousands more illegal immigrants into the United States. Where is the oath of office? President Biden gave the oath of office that he would protect the United States of America, protect the Constitution. We don't have open borders, even though President Biden has made open borders. And that is against the Constitution. He's breaking his oath, and the Democrats are enabling this man. So we have a lot going on. The only way I see to get out of it is everyone has to, what we said before, the Democrats will not learn their lesson till we tell them to separate themselves from the socialists. If they will not kick the socialists out of their party, then it's up to the American people to kick the Democrats out of power. And not just a little bit. I think they need to be kicked out and know that they are in the wrong direction. And they're taking this country to socialism, communism, and taking away our freedoms on the journey. So you got your work cut out for you. All of us do. And we got to make it happen this midterm election. So get ready. We got a lot of shows coming up, very important. Listen, thank you for listening to Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. We'll be back next week, and hope you get your income tax done and send the United States Treasury all the money you make, because that's what Joe Biden wants you to do. All right, talk to you later. See you next week.
Thanks for joining us today, and remember to listen again next week for another edition of Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. You can order Ed's new book, Bedrock Truths, by clicking on the book cover right in front of you on the screen, or visit DocHolliday.org. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week.